John lobster dish?
Well, what can I say? I mean, lobster to me, we're on an island, we should have lobster. We have the best lobster in the world. Much better than anything else that I've ever tasted. It's very, very important when you're actually cooking lobster, it must be alive. Yeah. The other important factor is, humanely, put the lobster in the freezer for about 45 minutes, and then of course the lobster's asleep. You then just drop it into boiling water, the lobster doesn't know anything about it. So once we've done that, what we actually do is we take the claw meat and the tail meat out, and then we're just going to warm it for a couple of minutes, right, and then it will be actually perfectly cooked. This would be the carcass meat that's left over, just been blanched. We're going to very quickly make a sauce. We use every single bit of the lobster. Take the carcass and really roast until it becomes quite red.
So just a spoonful of butter in there?
Yeah, nothing more. But then I've got what is commonly known as a mirepoix, a little bit of ginger, a touch of cardamom and coriander leaf. Okay. And in a nutshell, I always like to use celeriac, fennel, all of the sweet vegetables rather than anything else. Onion and a little carrot. So it's sauteing that. That will take, normally speaking, a good 15 minutes. Yeah. And obviously we're speeding it up a little touch, but you need that to really roast, because when you roast that, it actually releases the oils and the flavors that you want, and that will give you the flavor in the sauce. Ginger works so well with lobster. As we saute it, it softens, and it mustn't be overpowering. Rest assured, when you taste this, you'll hardly taste the ginger. A couple of pods of cardamom. Now always be very careful with cardamom, it's very heady, very, very powerful. I only use 2 pods. The next thing that we actually have is a little bit of cognac. It's in a container there, and just let that reduce and burn off. We then add a little bit of chicken stock. Notice the chicken stock. I'm a great believer that the stock for lobster must be fairly neutral, hence the reason. If you use fish stock, it overpowers the lobster. So I find that very, very important. The next stock that we have is a lobster stock in its own right. We do that by just taking the carcasses of the lobster and making a fine stock from that. It's just a very, very simple stock. But when you have seafood, if you use shellfish, I always use the words to the guys, it's a sweet shellfish sauce. Yeah. And it must have a sweetness. And once that's there, we just add a little touch of coriander, a couple of stalks and leaves in there, and then that has to actually come down and reduce. Inside here, we have a little touch of cream, water, clarified butter. It's just a poaching liquor, so that it's very, very neutral. This is so important. Once again, if you heat the lobster in a fish stock, you kill the lobster. So the whole idea is to have this neutral effect so that we actually have the full flavor of the lobster. At approximately 50 degrees and just warming it up. Here we have the lobster reduction now, which is just coming on nicely there now. It was actually blanched, the tail meat is actually blanched for 2 minutes. Now the claws, it's quite important, the claws must stay in the water for a minimum of 4 minutes so that they actually release away from the carcass. You know, when you add salt, if you actually add salt when you're making reduction, what happens? It becomes more powerful. So it's very important. What I do, I always believe at different phases of cooking, you will add a little bit of salt. But on something like this, when it's seafood, just add it at the end, because obviously seafood has got salt in it already. We add our cream, and then bring this to the boil, and literally just gently cook this for about 5 to 10 minutes, no more. And now a little bit of pepper, and the most wonderful salt in the world,
the Maldon Salt.
A little touch of Maldon sea salt. There's nothing like the crack when you actually just sprinkle a little touch of salt onto the anything, meat, fish, whatever, and when you actually get that little crystal. I find it superb, superb. My humble belief is by using Maldon Salt, you don't use quite as much, which is actually a little bit healthier as well. And it's just a matter of cutting down. Can you just see how this is cooked, Roy? It's lovely and opaque. It's just to the point. Can you see it?
Oh, yes.
You don't want it more cooked than that. If you cook it more than that, that's when, you know when people say, this lobster's hard?
Sure. That's why.
when. And then inside here, I've already prepared a light cauliflower puree. It's just cauliflower that's been cooked in some cream, a little bit of milk, and water with a touch of butter. Once that's then cooked, we then liquidize it and actually add some of that cream just to monte inside. So it's a matter of dressing. Nothing on the plate unless it has flavour.
Sure. No unnecessary garnishes.
No, and especially on something like this, because all you do is you take away the flavour of what is a very, very noble product. Now remember the texture? It's just there. When I have a textured sauce like this, it's very important that I just use my Bumex just to give it a little touch of texture. It only aerates it, but it gives the appearance that you've actually got a little bit more texture to your sauce.
Yeah.
Now I'm desperate for you to taste this, Roy.
Not as desperate as I am to taste it.
Last but not least, I'd just like to serve 1 or 2 little medallions
What's that?
of ginger, which has just been blanched. And lastly, just a little bit of chervil.
So along with Maldon Salt, ginger's the secret.
Wait, that was the last bit. I just wanted to fleck a little bit of crunchy sea salt for you from Maldon, and see what you think of that, please, Roy.
What a miserable life.
And taste the claw.
Oh my God. That is beautiful. You're quite right. That crunchiness to that.
Yeah.
Really, really makes it good.
This is a fricassee of lobster with cauliflower puree and ginger.
On the menu here?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, this dish is another dish. You know, I keep certain dishes with me as, whether you call them specialities, they're dishes I believe in.